Namaste, viewers, and welcome to this special edition of Amazing Vedas with Dr. Pariksith Singh. As you know, there's a nationwide celebration of the 250th anniversary of the United States. You might even say worldwide, because, a World Cup football is going on. And, tomorrow, which is July the 4th, is going to be observed in one form or another in many parts of the US. But I think, and Dr. Singh, let me know what you think. I don't think anybody is going to link it with the Vedas, is it? So we are doing this special, and that's why I am also dressed in the special Indian kurta. And I'm going to ask Dr. Singh very shortly what the connection of Amazing Vedas is to America's 250th anniversary. But before that, I just wanted to say one thing, which is that please don't forget that Amazing Vedas is itself a US program. We thought of it here. And, a few years ago, I tried to start something in India. It's still going on in a different, geography with a different title. It's called Living Vedas. But I soon found what was happening with that program. I won't go into it. So, this initiative itself is symptomatic of the connection, number one. But number two, there's also been a very interesting book published a few years ago called The American Veda by Phil Goldberg, which actually talks about the interconnections between, India and the US. So viewers, please watch all three episodes. We are going to, for example, talk about the connection between liberty as the Americans thought of it, as the founding fathers thought of it, and Indian ideas of moksha. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. We are also going to talk about the contribution of Indian thought uh, to the United States, the Parliament of Religion, Swami Vivekananda, all of those things, the transcendentalists, Emerson, Thoreau, the Gita in America. And we also want to go to Sri Aurobindo's special message to America, which he gave in 1949, the year before he passed. And it has to be read in conjunction, I believe, with his message to India on the eve of India's independence. I think these two messages have rarely been read together. He talks about his 5 dreams in one, as you remember, in the message to India on the eve of Indian independence, which he gave in a radio address to All India Radio Trichinapalli. And this letter, this address or this message to America, which he gave in 1949. So we'll be talking about all these three things and much more. So please stay with us for this very special Independence Day edition of Amazing Vedas. So, Dr. Singh, first of all, please tell me, what is the connection between Amazing Vedas and US independence?
On the surface, there is really no connection. I mean, just put it out there. But there's a subtler, deeper connection, as all human enterprises, activities are linked. If you look at, they were pioneers. The rishis were pioneers. They broke the mold, so to speak, which was not fully set, but they created new molds for the future. They created the formulations that we are still living to an extent, the images, the symbolism, even the language, the linguistics, the poetics, prosody. It's a fabulous start to humanity's literature, religions. So it was a breakthrough, and I intend, the pun is intended. It was also an exploration of consciousness and a great refinement of art and consciousness. Now, how does America take anything from the Veda? Not really on the surface, but the Americans have had one of the great qualities is they break the mold, and they basically gave us, in a way, the idea of democracy, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, these are immortal words. The founders were amazing people. They were simple people, but they had ideas about what this the future should be, what their country should be. The only thing that can equate to this great American Revolution is perhaps the French Revolution with its liberty, equality, and fraternity. But the influence of America is still continuing 250 years. It has been a powerful influence on the globe, across the globe, mostly for the good. There are some tendencies that have affected us in a negative way, perhaps in the last, perhaps a few decades. But the soul of America is intact, and the soul is a creative soul, challenging, not accepting given formations and breaking them, and not accepting itself. Even yesterday I was reading how America constantly broke the mold, not like the Luddites who stuck with the original technology, and every time there was a technological breakthrough, the country progressed, the people came up. So that's where I have. But let me ask you a question, because today is your turn. And we are fortunate to be here in this country. It's a great country. It's really a civilization, even though a short living civilization compared to the others that we know of that have lived 6,000, 5,000 years, or 250 years. But still, what an impact. So I'm going to throw the question back at you, throw you a Chinaman. You know what that delivery is with the left hand. It's a left-handed googly.
Exactly.
So it's even doubly effective. No pun intended with the Chinaman situation. But so you tell, I mean, you've studied this a lot, the US, you have lived in both countries, you did your research here. What is your impression? Where are we today after 250 years at this turning point, the crossroads? And you tell us how you see what we have, how they overlap and where we're going with it. So today is going to be a reverse swing. Pun intended.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to duck. See, sometimes what happens is when people throw you bouncers or difficult deliveries in cricket. And by the way, cricket is one British game the Americans did not, actually take to. And, we're talking about soccer today, football. The US is also, making headway in this world of soccer, which they refrained from participating in. And, they broke the mold, as you said. They always adapted. Instead of cricket, they have baseball. Instead of soccer, they have American football, which is a combination of football as we know it outside of America and rugby. So they're always doing things differently. But as I said, with the cricketing metaphor, I don't want to duck, but I want to ask you just a couple more questions. See, first of all, you said that the rishis, who in a way founded Indian civilization and gave so much to the world, right? If you look at the founding fathers of America, I just want to ask you, do you think they were like rishis?
They probably would not meet the definition of a rishi, mantra drashtaraha, the one who saw the vibrational sound, but they were definitely visionaries of a very high order. They were common people. They were willing to sacrifice everything for their idea. Some did, many of them did, and they suffered a lot, but they stood for an idea, and they gave everything to that idea, and they kind of, I would say, in the yajna of liberty, they offered their nation as a template, as a lab in which the ideas of freedom, liberty, of pursuing happiness and for its own sake, they gave us that vision.
I like the idea that they were visionaries, because they were. And I also think that they were drashtas in a manner of speaking, not mantra drashtas necessarily, but they had this vision, they had this knowledge in them. In fact, they had this idea that they were doing something really unique for humanity. And it was not just liberty, though that's so important, and happiness, as you said, but also the creation of absolutely new things, new forms. So America has been the leader in innovation right from the start, and They were constantly pushing the boundaries, and much of the modern world as we know it. Now, we are in Homosassa and it's pretty warm and there's a heat wave, right? Now, you can ask who invented air conditioning? It was an American, it was a man called Carrier, and he invented it in Texas. So, if you just, talking about Tesla or Starlink or whatever is now, but this has been going on for more than 100 years. I mean, Edison, he invented electricity, the airplane, the tractor, which helped to multiply, agricultural production, the Green Revolution. I mean, you name it. And usually America has been at the forefront of progress and innovation in a manner that's unprecedented. So there were drashtas in the sense that they were envisioning or envisaging a future for all of humanity, not just for themselves. So we'll talk about that revolutionary moment in greater detail in our next episode, because a lot of new material has come to light, which has not been, as it were, in the public domain. I'll talk a little bit about it, some new books that we can refer to. But I want to ask you one more question before we end our episode today. Personally, I'm not an American citizen. I studied here many years ago. I've come back to work here, thanks to you, Dr. Singh. But, I'm filled with gratitude for this country, for what it's given me. 19-year-old, I apply to a university in America I've never heard of. I'd never heard of the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana. And I applied because I went to USIF in Connaught Place, USCFI, it used to be called then. They gave me a list of universities to apply to. I just randomly chose some. I got admitted to 3 or 4. That's a different story. But imagine giving an opportunity. I wrote my statement of purpose. I sent them an essay. I got admission in 3 or 4 universities. And this was such a good deal. I got in a couple of Canadian schools also. But apart from whatever I had, for them to pick me up, I was 2 years short of an American graduate, who had graduated, was an undergraduate. So they had 18 years of schooling plus 4 years of undergrad. I was 2 years short. I had only 3 years of BA and only 11 years practically of schooling, because we were in a different system, and they waived all these requirements. So it's amazing. And I got an assistantship. I was educated free. And Dr. Singh, one of the most amazing things is I learned all about India and America, because there was nothing to do. It was so cold. And this was a receiving library, a PL 480 receiving institution. So every book published in India landed up there. So whatever I've learned about the Vedas, about the Upanishads I read in the US. See, Gandhi read the Gita properly in England, because though his mother belonged to the Pranami sect, and he must have heard it. It's a Krishna, worshipping sect. I mean, he read the Gita in a translation by a theosophist, Sir Edwin Arnold, the song Celestial. And theosophy was also a kind of American thing, because Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott and Alan Octavian Hume founded the Congress. So there's deep Indo-US connections. But what I wanted to say, and I want to ask you this also, is that outside of India, I can't think of any other country where Indians have done so well as in America. Numbers vary, but there's 3.5 million Indians here. They are the captains of industry, business. They are in government. You had people like Kash Patel, and somebody stood for, President Vivek Ramaswamy. We had a presidential candidate from the Democratic side who's half Indian. So just think about it. Where else have Indians done well? This country was founded on the principle of the freedom of religion, of pluralism. And outside of India and possibly Nepal, there are more Hindu temples and shrines and, Sikh gurdwaras, Jain temples, more in United States, than anywhere in the world. So, but, I want to ask you, what is your story? How did you come here? And we're very proud of you. Obviously, you've done really well. And there are other people in our area, Dr. Kiran Patel, who are billionaires, and people who came with nothing to this country, who were even driven out from wherever they were in East Africa or in other more distressed parts of the world. They came with a dream, possibly. They had education, and their talents were recognized. Whatever the banks gave them loans, on borrowed capital, they created magnificent businesses which employ thousands and thousands of people. They joined the innovation revolution. You've got a company like Micron, which is doing exceedingly well. It's led by a man called Mr. Malhotra, and it's a mega scaler. It's not one of the magnificent seven, but it's a hyperscaler today. So I think Indians in general, and especially American Indians, have a lot to be grateful for. And when we join these celebrations, we should acknowledge what this country has given all of us, whether we are citizens, whether we are green card holders, whether we're in line, whether we are H1B, whether we are students on F1 visas, whatever it is. This country has given us a lot as Indians. And by the way, we shouldn't be in any way less proud. Indians have done wonderfully well by the United States. We've given back a lot. We are a law abiding community by and large. There are some bad eggs and exceptions. We are taxpayers. Apparently, we are among the highest earning of minorities in America. So, though we are just 1% of the population, or maybe a little more, we contribute hugely. So, it's a two-way process. And that is what we might want to explore a little more. But I want to ask you about your own experience. You came here as a young man as well. How has it been like for you to come to this country? You met a beautiful lady, you married, you settled down here, you have 4 wonderful children, you have many people who depend on you, you are a leader, you're a community leader, you're a philanthropist. So, what has this country given you, not only in material terms, but by way of human flourishing? How has your own potential, flourished in this country?
I used to say when came here, and even when I had just begun, that the US is the most spiritual country in the world. That may shock people because usually we consider, the US as a materialistic society, hardcore, physically strong. And yes, of course, mistakes are made and by different leaders. But the US by itself, the people, amazing, beautiful people. I mean, imagine a transplant coming from India with a different accent, different looks, as a doctor starting in this remote area. It was cow country at that time, where, Hernando County. And the community, they embraced us. They allowed us to thrive. They allowed us, we're not talking about survival, thriving. And when Maria was pregnant, people came in to help. They were cooking for her, anything. People became grandparents to our children. They accepted them, embraced us. And which country in the world would be so open? And their hearts are open. That is, even in India, you would not find that. If I went to another area, you would have, unfortunately, we have lost a lot of our original fervor, which we should probably learn from the Americans, and I think we are learning to some extent. That innocence, and it's not a foolish innocence, but it's the openness. It is the willingness to do something great, and the ability to recognize greatness, the ability to recognize talent, and to allow the space to flourish. That, to me, is the American way. The freedom, the liberty of the spirit that comes from the liberty of your society, of your minds, of your bodies, of your vital energy. If I think of the Vedic life, often I would say there are glimpses of it here in many ways. And very eclectic society. It allows people to come in, and at one point, immigrants were welcome. And I hope, despite the minor aberrations that happen, they will always be welcome, because that's what made this country greater. And greatest Nobel Prizes, they were immigrants, more Nobel Prizes going to immigrants, people doing academic research, amazing research with hunger, with that fire, with that Agni coming in here and bringing that and lighting it up as a common a journey. And even now, it's not all lost. I sent you an article yesterday how the country has reinvented herself. Now, what can be more spiritual than that? To challenge oneself and to become something more than what you are. This is not theory. This is in practice. Andrew Carnegie, I think, when was that? 1875, he came with the steel industry. He brought it here. They did amazing things. They became the builders for Europe. And then came our Ford, who brought a new concept. The middle class was born. And it was not just a revolution in terms of automobiles, but a revolution of thought. And within 50 years, another big jump to the nation, a new middle class that was building cars, but that was also enjoying the profit from the industry itself. And then came, of course, 1976. You had great visionaries like Steve Jobs, who again gave us he and his friends in a little garage. I mean, that's the American way. You have to have a garage somewhere to do innovation. I think I'm going to put my lab in my garage now.
You already have your library in your garage.
Yes, that's true.
A lot of your work comes from that garage.
That's true. That's true.
You eminently qualify, though you're on the wrong coast.
Yeah, but what a great country, and we are thankful, we're grateful, and let's make it. My goal is always, okay, there are flaws everywhere. The fact that we are on earth, we're going to have limitations, but the goal should be to ascend, to transcend those limitations, and then create a synergy of the nations, of our different energies, different cultures, bring them together so that we can all evolve together and create something better for our children. I mean, that's the way I see it, and that's what, to me, the US is, and I'm always grateful. It has been my second mother, and it has kept me, I've spent now more years in the US than I spent in India. Of course, I love India. I was born there. I learned so much there. This name and form was given there. But America allowed this to blossom. Where would I be today without the US? So with deepest gratitude, we wish the nation a happy birthday, and we'll resolve to make it better, stronger every day. That should be our aspiration, I think, and follow those dreams, the ideals that the great nation was built on.
Exactly. That's very well put. And I'm going to pick up on one or two points you made, including how spiritual you found America. But I think absolutely join you today, expression of gratitude, especially from the Indian American community. And also this wish for America to continue to do well, not to be, cribbing and complaining all the time. There's a huge movement of, anti-Americanism within America, which it's wonderful to be critical, especially when you want to improve, but just negative stuff. And, every country has good things and bad things. As you said, there was slavery here. What happened to the Native Americans was terrible, but every nation has these things. So just dwelling on them to try to bring down the structure, etc., especially on an occasion like this, is sad. But the other thing, so apart from America being a spiritual country, I really want to pick this up in the next episode. And apart from the expression of gratitude, I also think it's very important to remember how, like, say, in your case, you came here, you've done so well, and now you want to give back. You want to give back to India. You have, companies there. You have charitable organizations there. I think this is very American, what I see, because I see it in many Indian Americans. I know dozens of people who, for example, I know doctors who found that in their native village, there was no hospital. So they made a hospital there. I have people who've donated to schools, to charities in India. I know people who found that there was no, machine for mammography. So they just gave that one machine whatever was needed, $50,000, $100,000, they got it done. So this attitude of doing well, but not just doing well yourself, to give back to your country, to give back to your community. Now, this for me is also the essence of America.
Yes,
So you
yes,
innovate.
yes. They're very giving people, they're very generous people. And here too, we have done things here, opened up some food banks
Thanks,
and
exactly.
employment, more employment, skilling. We've opened our university here. So we want to spread more education. As you know, the world is changing rapidly. We want to innovate. We want to create new things. We want to write books, exchanging ideas. And look, you are here as an extraordinary talent. And I don't know the exact term for it. Which country would allow that? You are a great talent. You've written books. You're a thinker. Okay, you're welcome. Nothing else needed. We don't. We're not going to give you a hard time. They didn't even ask you whether if you're a leftist or a rightist or a centrist or a all those labels that we put on. You have contributed to the world, to humanities. You've done a great job. Okay, you're welcome. Come here and prosper and do well. Give back to humanity. Now that is spiritual. Now, of course, that has been abused by certain nations. We don't want to talk about that, but that can be corrected. That can be fixed. But that is the soul of America.
Yes,
The
yes.
new, the fresh.
Absolutely. The reason I was mentioning this whole idea, even we'll talk about it in the next episode. Give me your poor, you're hungry. The message on, the Lady Liberty, the Statue of Liberty. But apart from that, this whole idea of this cycle of giving and reciprocity that you mentioned, when we've talked about this in the Vedas, that's what it is. Vritra, the Panis, Vala, all these people, they were wanted to hoard riches or wanted to hoard, the best things just for themselves. But America, has fertilized and spread knowledge. Also, the innovations that were, made here went all over the world. And I'm just bringing back the one point that you made, that you want to bring nations together. This is what Walt Whitman also said. And this is what Sri Aurobindo said. We're going to go to that in another episode in his message to America, where he challenges the idea of the materialistic East and the spiritual West. So we'll
Yes.
come to that. Viewers, do follow through, like, subscribe, and share this channel, and join us in this movement of spreading knowledge and, of course, of self improvement, of learning, and do, as it were, like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and do join us in the remaining episodes celebrating the 250th anniversary of the birth of a nation. Thank you, and namaste.